Hello everyone, and welcome to today's video. Now today we are going to be talking about week 16 of the Overwatch League, and we're going to be talking about the first week of the Countdown Cup, which is week 16. So we've obviously had the matches are done, and there are a lot of surprises and a lot of stuff that we need to talk about. Let's get on to the matches, and so this is the results. So the first day, Dallas versus Paris. It was a 3-2 to Paris. Now, I'm starting to really think that Paris is a gatekeeper. No, well, not really, but they have performed really well this season, and I'm really tempted just to call them the team of the year because they have surprised me every single week. Like they legit got a win against the leader of the West region, the Dallas Fuel. It's shocking to me. Then next was the Houston versus Washington, a very easy 3-0 for Houston. Washington has looked a bit struggling recently, so I'm not really that surprised about that. For the East, Hangzhou versus Seoul. This was a reverse sweep for the Seoul Dynasty. It was a bit unlucky for the Hangzhou Spark, but Seoul obviously pulled it off. New York versus Valiant, not that surprising at all. New York obviously won 3-0. Now this is the big surprise. The Philadelphia Fusion 3-0s the Shanghai Dragons. Now this, I don't know what they were doing. I had to look at the roster because when I first saw this, I couldn't believe it. I had to check it again just to make sure I wasn't dreaming. Um, So I had a look at the roster, and it looked like they were trying out some new things. Like they put develop in, I think for the first map, and in the last map they put who are you. So they probably are trying some new stuff, especially now with this meta. No Ashe or Echo, Sigma, Lucio. So it looks like Shanghai is struggling a lot there. So that is the East. For the West, Boston versus Paris, a 3-1 to Boston. Atlanta versus Gladiators, a 3-2 to Atlanta. And Dallas versus Shock, a 3-2 to Dallas. I'll talk about the other matches as well in more in depth. Seoul versus Valley, not that surprising, 3-0 for Seoul. Another loss for the Shanghai Dragons, a 3-2 to New York's Way against the Shanghai Dragons. I was actually watching a bit of it, a bit of this match, and oh, was it interesting? And Hangzhou versus Philly, a 3-1 to Philly. And for the West, this actually happened today. 3-0 for Atlanta against the Houston Outlaws. Shock versus Boston, a 3-1 to Shock. And Gladiators versus Washington, a 3-0 to Gladiators. Okay, we need to unpack this a lot. Mainly, there are a couple matches I always want to talk about. I already touched up upon the Philly and Shanghai match. Another match is probably the Dallas and Paris one, because Paris looked very strong. I thought the trend was gonna continue upwards. Like I thought they were gonna go 4-0. I wouldn't be surprised if they did go 4-0, but obviously they didn't because they lost to Boston, who also looks really good. Um, Atlanta has most likely found their footing now. And as a true Atlanta fan, I'm very happy about that. So hopefully this upward trajectory does continue for them. The Dallas um, did play some of the closest maps of this week. Like we had a look here, a 3-2. Especially in Blizzard World, Jesus Christ, that was close. Havana, my God, that was a smashing defeat for Dallas. And then this one, again, very close. And Sparkle. Everyone else also, and obviously Dallas Fuel did really well. Just like you know, I didn't watch a lot of the matches, so I'm gonna be very bland of what I can remember and everything. But so Dallas was a bit unlucky there, but they did get a win off the two-timers, the Shock, who still looks just lost. I'll be honest, they look very lost as two-time champions of the Overwatch League. They look entirely lost. I think it's definitely going to be a two-horse race against Dallas and Shanghai. That'll be a fantastic grand final if that is the case. If not, then it's a bit unlucky, but maybe obviously now with the banned characters, we'll see if that affects Dallas and Shanghai, but we'll have to wait and see about that. Valiant obviously still struggling. Philly, they did got Shockwave, so Shockwave is now in Korea. Poco, still nothing on him. I don't think he's even going to be playing at all. I think this Overwatch League season. So if he does get replaced and everything, I'll be really, really, really sad. But hopefully he doesn't. I do hope he does get another chance, especially in another team. Mainly, maybe for Paris. Maybe, you know, it could be maybe an off tank for him. But so yeah, if Philly does drop Poker, I really hope that he does find a new home. Hangzhou looks meh, looks a bit struggling. There, Houston a bit inconsistent because they won against Washington, but they lost, but they lost against Atlanta. What's the what's the point of that? What's the point? I don't understand it. Um, Gladiators looked also. They do look really, really good though. They did lose to Atlanta, but it looked like a really, really close match. And Gladiators versus Washington, it was also a close match as well against them. But yeah, Gladiators so they came out on top, and then the Shock winning against Boston as well. And the Shanghai, I don't know what happened to I don't know. I have no idea what's happening to Shanghai. I thought they probably had a chance to win against New York. I wouldn't be surprised. Like I said to myself as well, I wouldn't be surprised if New York actually does win this. But I'm still surprised because Shanghai looks like legit looked unstoppable, and then they just shat the bed. So a bit unlucky there. Let's have a look at the standings now for both of the regions. For the West, currently the Atlanta Reign is first, still undefeated. The next matches, I'll talk about next week's matches actually. Second to them, it is the LA Gladiators, then the San Francisco Shock, then tied for fourth place, the Boston Uprising, Dallas Fuel, and the Houston Outlaws, and in seventh place, the Paris Eternal. Mayhem, Spitfire, Defiant Titans, they have not played yet, and then down in last place, the Washington Justice. For the East, the Philadelphia Fusion is currently in the lead. Tied for second, it is the NYXO and Seoul Dynasty. Chengdu and Guangzhou have not played yet. Hangzhou in sixth, the Shanghai Dragons in seventh, and the LA Valiant in eighth. Now, if you are a Shanghai Dragons fan, I don't think you should really panic, because as I'm now going to talk about now in the standings, they're actually completely fine. So even if they do lose all of their matches in the Countdown Cup, it doesn't really matter, because they already are in the playoffs. They've already advanced in, so they can just throw whatever. So it doesn't really matter to them. For next week's matches, so here they are. So we got the London Spitfire versus the Toronto Defiant, the Vancouver Titans versus the Boston Uprising for the first day. For the West, still in the first day, New York Celsius versus Philly, Seoul versus Shanghai, that'll be a good match, and Chengdu versus Guangzhou. For August 7th, Dallas versus London, Florida versus Atlanta, and Toronto versus Washington. Next up, Philly versus Seoul, Chengdu versus New York, Shanghai versus Guangzhou. If Shanghai doesn't win this, I don't know what to even say to them, to be honest. And finally for the West, Boston versus Florida, Atlanta versus Dallas, and Vancouver versus Washington. So those are going to be next week's matches for Week 17 of the Countdown Cup. And now we're going to be having a look at the... Well, soon, before we get to look at the standings, there are actually going to be... There are actually some changes that we have to talk about. Mainly regarding the Hangzhou Spark. Actually, I haven't talked about this actually in a long last time. So... I think if we start off right here, you can't really see that. I think, yeah. So Damien has now become the coach, another coach for the Shanghai Dragons, which means the Dragons now has 5 coaches. Mentlers and Adante, they have all left. Ivy has retired from professional Overwatch. Only Wish has been, what's I'm trying to look for? He has now been promoted from Bilibili Gaming, which is Hangzhou's academy team, to now become the assistant coach of the Hangzhou Spark alongside Youthful, I think it is. And is it Leiji or Leggy? I don't know. The off tank for the Hangzhou Spark has now become a 2-way contract player. And so he'll be playing for both Hangzhou and Bilibili Gaming. So that basically means that Bernard will be the full-time off-tank player for them. Now we get to have a look at the standings for overall, and this is what it looks like for the West region. The Dallas Fuel still in the lead with 16 points. Then behind them, the San Francisco Shock, the Houston Outlaws, and the Atlanta Reign, all with 10 points to their names. If Atlanta wins their next 2 matches, they will be in front of both of those teams. Because I do not think they're actually playing on those weeks. That is correct. No, none of them will be playing this that week. So they need to win those 2 matches. 5th place is the LA Gladiators with 9 points. The Justice in 6th with 8 points. Boston and Paris both with 7 points. The Toronto with 6, and then now in the cutoff of the postseason, so in the playoffs, Florida with 5, and London and Vancouver both have 0. So I think London and Vancouver, they have no chance of making it into the playoffs. Florida still has a chance. They just need to win their next couple matches, and Toronto needs to win their matches and hope that Florida loses their next matches. And then for the East, the Shanghai Dragons with 18 points is in the lead. Then behind them is second with 11 points to their name, Seoul Dynasty. Both with 9, Philly and Chengdu with 9 points. Hangzhou with 7. New York Excelsior also with 7, so that is going to be something that we all need to look at. The battle in the last playoff spot for the East region between the New York Excelsior and the Hangzhou Spark. Guangzhou with 3 points in 7th, and the LA Valiant, who are eliminated from the playoffs, with 0. I don't think Guangzhou even has a chance. I don't think. So now, what I mean about how Shanghai is fine if they just lose their next matches, well, that's just because they're actually already in the playoffs, as you can see by this little star, including the Dallas Fuel. Both of them, what the hell? Both of them have clinched a playoff. Well, has clinched the postseason playoffs. So both the Dragons and the Fuel will be in the playoffs. It doesn't really matter if they lose their next 2 matches. It doesn't matter. They will be in it. Which is, I guess obviously a lifesaver for the Shanghai Dragons fans. So that's really it for me now. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Catch you guys on next time in the next one. Goodbye.